Hey friends, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson and welcome to this week's little lesson. Today, I'm going to show you how you can play any chord. But first, I'd like you to repeat after me. My rhythm guitar skills are more important than my lead guitar skills. 90% of the people have probably moved on from this video, but for those of you that remain, it is possible to be able to play any kind of chord voicing that you're looking to play. Now, we know that a chord is made up of a certain combination of scale degrees within a given key. More often than not, these are the four most commonly grouped together degrees of each musical key: the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7. Now, when it comes to chords, it's usually the 3 and the 7 that define the tonality of the chord most. The third will more often than not decide whether or not you're playing a major or a minor chord. And the 7, well, that's sort of where the flavor of the chord comes in. Let me go ahead and give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's just play a straight up A major bar chord. We have our root note, A, which is the 1. We have E, which is the 5. We have the octave of our 1, another A. And then we have this little guy right here, which is the 3rd, and that is a C sharp. Then we have ourselves an E, and then another A. This is a pretty basic chord. We all know it. We've played it a million times. But every once in a while, you don't want a straight up major chord. You want a major 7 chord. And it's very easy to do. All you need to do is you really just need to drop that octave down to that major 7th, which would then give you this. Now, when we're playing a major 7th chord and we're playing it with our root note on the 6th string of the guitar, we're changing up the fingering a bit. We're omitting that last high A, removing it entirely, and just playing the root note, which is A, the major 7th, which is G sharp, our 3rd, which is C sharp, and then finally the high E, which would be our 5th. So altogether, it would sound like this. You can see just by that chord alone, we already have established that first we have our major 3rd, which tells us that it's going to be a major chord, and the major 7th, which adds that flavor. But what about a minor chord, you might say? Well, let's go ahead and play C sharp minor. Now we can do the same kind of thing that we just did, except now we can do the minor 7th voicing. That is going to be a very simple move for us to do because all we have to do is omit the octave and then give us that minor 7th. But we can then again see there, it's the 3rd that dictates tonality and the 7th that dictates flavor. But what about chords that have like 2s, 4s, 6s in them? Well, it works in exactly the same way. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. To make this one simple, let's go to C major. Now, a major chord in and of itself is all well and good, but we want to add something a little bit more special to it. For me, one of my favorite things to do is to add a 9 on top of a chord. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that when it comes to chords and you see scale degrees like a 9, an 11, or a 13, you're essentially thinking of it as an octave of the 2, the 4, etc. Think about 8 being your next 1. So let's go ahead and give ourselves a nice C9 chord. So we'll start out with our major chord. Pretty simple. But when we go to add that 9 in, we kind of lose our root note. Now, if you're doing inversions, which is a whole other thing entirely, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but we want to maintain that C root note. So we got to find somewhere else to add in the 2, which is D, but up an octave, so it's the 9. And then add the high G at the top for good measure. But what about a really weird voicing? Something that's like a 6-9 chord. Yes, they do exist. Get yourself a real book and find out. Well, let's go ahead and go to a major key for that one. How about G? Now with this, we're typically going to start from that G major 7 voicing. So the 6 means that we're going to need to count up 6 scale degrees. G, A, B, C, D, and our 6, E. So we need to have the E in there. So most likely what we're going to do is we're going to take away the major 7th, drop it down a whole step to the 6th. All right? Now with the 9, we already know that that's an octave of the 2. So the 2 of G is going to be A. So we need to find a place to add in A. Now there's a couple places that we could add that A in for different kinds of flavor. Of course, there's the open A. But that kind of gives us a little bit of dissonance that may not work for us. Well, the next logical place would be at the G string, a whole step up from the open position, 2nd fret, the G string. And there we have the 6 and the 9 emphasized right there. But we've also dropped the 3rd. Let's go ahead and add it right here. 5th fret on the high E string. Probably something that would sound really good with lots of washy reverb and delay. To sum it all up, it's really not that hard to play just about any chord written out in front of you. Remember, the 3rd and the 7th are going to tend to be the things that you'll need to change more often than not to get some of those voicings across. But as long as you know your scale degrees and understand that anything beyond 9 is just an octave of what came before, that'll help you with some of those higher number extensions like 13s and 11s. Thank you all for joining me for this week's little lesson video. I hope you got something out of it. If you have any questions about this or any other guitar playing concept, let me know what it is in the comment section down below, because you never know, I might answer your question in next week's little lesson. If you enjoyed this and want to see more of these lesson videos, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. If you want to stay up to date on these lessons, demos, and maybe even win some cool gear, join my email club at SeanPierceJohnson.com/email. And if you'd like to support the channel with your dollars, you can do so by utilizing the affiliate links I have in the description box down below. Use them for your everyday gear shopping or those treat yourself purchases. Thanks so much for joining me, friends. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And until then, I wish you all great tone, great health, and happy stomping. Cheers, friends. God bless.